I never imagined I'd be begging my own father, but when you've been invisible for years, even wrong things start to feel right. The words. I didn't even recognize my own voice when I whispered them. We were in the hallway. It was dark, quiet, thick with things left unsaid. Only a sliver of light from the kitchen fell across the floor like a line, one of those lines you know you shouldn't cross, but somehow, you already have. I remember my hand resting on the doorknob. My knees were shaking, but not from fear, from something deeper. Shame? Longing? God, I wish I knew. He was standing there. Still. Silent. Looking at me like he didn't know whether to run or reach for me. And when I said it, those words, when they left my lips, I swear I could feel the air itself shift. Like the house had been holding its breath for years, waiting for this exact moment to happen. And you know what's messed up? It wasn't sudden. It wasn't a moment that fell out of the sky. No. It crept in. Slowly, quietly, like water leaking under a locked door. One touch too long. One compliment that didn't feel quite right. One moment of silence that didn't end soon enough. But before we get there, before I take you down this path with me, I need to ask you something. What would you do if love and betrayal wore the same face? If the only person who finally made you feel seen was someone who should have never looked at you that way? See, people think crossing lines is like flipping a switch. Black and white. Right and wrong. But it's not. It's slower. Messier. It happens in moments you don't even realize matter, until they do. Until you're standing there in the dark, your whole body begging for something your soul can't bear. And all you have left is the sound of your own voice saying words you'll never be able to take back. Daddy, please be gentle. It belongs to you now. I know how that sounds. I know what you're thinking. But please, don't look away yet. Because this isn't just about what happened. It's about how it happened. Why it happened. And the way one small tear in the fabric of love can unravel everything. So take a breath. Settle in. And listen closely. Because what I'm about to share with you, this story, it's the kind of truth most people would rather bury than speak out loud. But I'm speaking it. For every soul that's ever been lonely. For every person who's ever confused attention with affection. And for anyone who's ever looked at someone they shouldn't have and felt something they can't explain. Subscribe to Crossing Lines now because these are the stories no one dares to tell. And trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. I guess to understand how we got there, you need to know where we started. I'm 19. Technically an adult, I guess. But I don't feel like one. I feel suspended. Like time forgot about me. After the divorce, Mom moved out to be with her new beginning in Oregon. She said it was about finding herself. Finding peace. What she really meant was, she was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of Dad. And, if I'm being honest, probably tired of me too. So I stayed. With him. Dad. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't have anywhere else to go. Our house was the same one I grew up in. Suburban. 2 stories. Beige siding. A cracked driveway with weeds that no one bothered pulling anymore. It used to smell like cinnamon in the fall. Now it just smells like dust and silence. Inside? It's quiet. Always quiet. Like we're both pretending the other isn't there. Like if we just keep walking around each other long enough, maybe the past will clean itself up. Dinner's always at 6. We sit across from each other at the table, plates between us like some kind of buffer zone. He chews slowly. Never talks much. The only sounds are the clink of cutlery and the low hum of whatever the TV's playing in the background. Sometimes I talk just to fill the space. He nods, maybe throws in a hum. Other times, he doesn't respond at all. That used to hurt. Now? Now I expect it. He wasn't always like this. Before the divorce, Dad was warm. Not overly affectionate, but he tried. He used to call me kiddo, tousle my hair, make pancakes on Saturdays with chocolate chips that sank to the bottom like little treasures. But something in him shut down when Mom left. like someone hit a switch and turned off all the lights inside. He walks differently now, shoulders hunched, like he's carrying invisible weight. He never looks me in the eye for too long. Never touches me, not even casually. Even if our fingers graze when we pass dishes at the table, he pulls away like I burned him. And I guess that's what started to make me feel wrong. Not angry. Not even sad, really. Just forgotten. Unseen. Like wallpaper in a house no one visits anymore. It's strange, the way silence starts to feel familiar. Comfortable even. But also unbearable. I'd walk through the house, barefoot, listening to the echo of my own footsteps, just to remind myself I still existed in there. And sometimes, just sometimes, I'd catch him watching me. Not in a weird way. Not at first. Just a glance from the living room as I walked upstairs. Or a pause before he turned the page in his book when I entered the room. But those glances, they lingered. Too long. Too still. I told myself I was imagining it. That I was starved for attention and my mind was twisting things. But deep down, something in me knew. Sometimes the way he looked at me made me feel seen. But not in the way a father sees his daughter. It was subtle. A flicker. A shift in the air. Like a song playing beneath the silence. Just loud enough to hear, but too soft to name. I didn't know whether to feel flattered or afraid. But I felt something. And when you've been invisible for so long, feeling something, anything, starts to feel like salvation. I used to look through my old childhood photos at night. Back when things made sense. There's one where I'm on his shoulders, laughing so hard my eyes are squinted shut. He's holding my legs like he'd never let go. That picture doesn't even feel real anymore. It's like looking at someone else's life. He doesn't laugh now. Not with me. Not with anyone. He comes home late most nights. Work, he says. But there's no urgency in his voice. Just numbness. We live together, but we're both alone in that house. Drifting ghosts in separate rooms, breathing the same air, but never truly sharing it. Until the day everything shifted. It started small, like all stories like this do. But I'll tell you about that next. Because the first time our fingers didn't pull away was also the first time I realized just how blurred the line between love and loneliness can get. It happened on a Sunday, just like any other. The kind of quiet, gray morning where the sun forgets to show up and everything feels like it's wrapped in fog. I woke up late. Dad was already downstairs. I could smell eggs and toast from the hallway. The smell took me back to when I was little, those rare mornings when he'd hum while cooking and kiss my forehead before handing me a plate. That version of him felt like a dream now. Still, the scent of breakfast felt warm, familiar. And for a second, I let myself feel safe. I patted down the stairs in one of his old t-shirts. Oversized, soft at the collar, something I'd worn 100 times without thinking. But that day, it felt different. It clung in places it hadn't before. I noticed that. So did he. He didn't say anything at first. Just looked over his shoulder, spatula in hand. Eyes lingered longer than usual. Not long enough to accuse, but long enough that I felt it. I told myself I was imagining things. I always did. I grabbed a glass from the cabinet and leaned in across the counter to reach the butter. And that's when it happened. Our hands brushed. Not in a clumsy, distracted way. Not the kind of touch you forget 5 seconds later. No, this was different. His hand didn't move, just for a second. A breath. A flicker of time that stretched too far. He looked at me. I looked at him. And for a moment, the world stopped making sense. He pulled away first. Cleared his throat. Went back to flipping eggs like nothing had happened. But something had happened. There was this silence. Thick, electric, charged like a storm about to crack open the sky. I felt my heartbeat in my ears. I could barely swallow the sip of orange juice I took right after. Neither of us said anything. We ate breakfast in that same weird quiet. Only now it wasn't the usual silence, the kind we'd grown used to. No, this was new, heavier, unspoken, almost curious. Later that day, I caught him glancing at me through the mirror in the hallway. He was standing in the living room behind me, pretending to be focused on the mail. But his eyes flicked up to mine, just for a second, and then dropped like he'd touched something hot. I stood there, frozen, staring at my own reflection, trying to act like I hadn't noticed, trying to pretend my stomach hadn't just twisted into something I didn't have a name for. From that day on, the compliments started. Small, harmless, almost fatherly. You look nice today. That color suits you. You've really grown up. Each one dropped into the air like a stone in still water, and each one rippled longer than it should have. I'd wait for the tone, the look, the silence that followed, the way he'd avoid eye contact after saying it like he knew, or maybe like he didn't want to know what it meant. One night, I came down to grab a glass of water. He was watching some late-night movie, the kind with no real plot. Just background noise. I said, "Can't sleep." He shook his head, then looked at me. Really looked. Like he was seeing me for the first time all over again. And then he said it, "Hey, baby girl." Just like that. Out of nowhere. Soft. Low. Like the words had been asleep in his mouth for years, and just now decided to wake up. My heart dropped. Not from fear. Not from joy. From something in between. Something more dangerous than either. Because that was what he used to call me. When I was 5. When he'd tuck me in. When I believed he could fix anything. He hadn't said those words since the night Mom left. Now they were back. And they didn't sound innocent anymore. They sounded intimate. Too intimate. And yet I didn't correct him. I didn't laugh it off. I didn't run back upstairs and slam the door. I just stood there. Let it hang in the air between us. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Reading into things. Grasping for meaning in a house that had none. But as the days passed, the shifts became harder to ignore. His compliments weren't daily, but they always came at just the right moment. When I looked vulnerable. When I wore something fitted. When I was distracted, caught in my own head. He'd say something simple, and suddenly, I'd feel a heat crawl up my spine that had nothing to do with shame, and everything to do with being noticed. That terrified me. Because I didn't want it. But I didn't want to lose it either. Do you understand what that feels like? To crave the thing you're not supposed to want? To feel seen, and violated, and cherished, all at once? I'd lie in bed and replay moments in my mind like a sick movie I couldn't turn off. His hand brushing mine. The way his eyes flickered when I walked into a room. That one night he touched my shoulder as I walked past, a touch that lingered just a second too long. Was I imagining it? Or had something already shifted? And if something had shifted, who moved first? Him? Or me? That's the part one still can't answer. All I know is, from that morning on, the world wasn't safe anymore. Not inside that house. Not inside my mind. But part of me didn't want safety. Part of me wanted to be wanted. And I think he knew that. I keep asking myself over and over, why did I let it happen? How did it start? But the truth is, it didn't feel like I chose it. It felt like I was drowning, and he was the only hand that reached out. I just wanted someone to notice me. Not like a kid. Not like a ghost. Someone. When I was little, Dad used to notice everything. How my hair curled just so in the morning. How I liked my toast burnt on the edges. How I'd hide my bruise from falling off my bike, but he'd always see it anyway. I remembered those times with a bittersweet ache. Back when love was simple. When affection wasn't tangled in silence or regret. When he was still my dad. After the divorce, that love changed. It became cold. Distant. Like a locked room I wasn't allowed to enter. So when he started looking at me again, really looking, like he might see me for more than just a shadow in the house, something inside me shifted. I wanted to believe it was just fatherly care. I wanted to believe that maybe, after all the years of neglect and quiet grief, he was finally remembering who I was. But some part of me knew it was more complicated than that. Was it wrong to want to be touched? To crave the warmth of someone's skin, even if it was just a hand on my arm? To want to be held without judgment or explanation? He's the only one who hasn't left. Mom left. My friends drifted away. Even I left pieces of myself behind. But Dad stayed. Physically, at least. And maybe that's why I let myself cross lines I never should have crossed. Maybe that's why I started dressing differently. Not intentionally, not really, but I noticed it happening. The baggy shirts I used to wear became tighter. I stopped pulling my hair back. I wore jeans that hugged my hips. I caught his eyes on me more often. And I didn't look away. I told myself it was for me. To feel good again. To feel alive. But maybe, deep down, I wanted more than that. Maybe I wanted to feel like a daughter again. Or maybe I wanted to be something else entirely. The worst part is the guilt. It creeps in like a cold shadow at the back of my mind, whispering that I'm wrong, that I'm broken, that I'm the reason everything is falling apart. But I can't stop, because every time he looks at me that way, that strange, lingering way, I feel like I'm finally seen. Not as a mistake, not as the girl no one wanted to fight for, but as someone who matters, even if it's just for a moment. And that's what scares me most. Because if I wanted to be loved like this, then what does that say about me? What does that say about him? And what does it mean for what's coming next? After that morning, everything started to change. Not with fireworks or shouting matches, but with little moments, quiet, subtle, like cracks forming in the ice beneath my feet. I remember the night he helped me zip up a dress for the first time in months. It wasn't a special occasion or anything. Just a dinner out with a few friends. But as I stood there, waiting with my back to him, I felt his hands on the zipper. Slow, careful, almost tender. I could feel his breath near my neck. Warm, steady, and somehow frightening. His fingers brushed over the fabric, and when the zipper reached the top, he hesitated just a fraction longer than he should have. "You remind me of your mother," he said quietly. "When she was young." The words hung in the air. I wanted to ask what he meant, but I couldn't. Because even though he was talking about her, I knew he was looking at me. That night, we sat on the couch to watch a movie. A mindless comedy. Something neither of us really paid attention to. Our knees touched, just barely. I didn't move away. He didn't either. That simple contact sent a ripple through me. It was electric and terrifying. A quiet rebellion against everything I thought I knew about us. I started to play with the edge of something I couldn't name. Was it desire? Was it fear? Was it loneliness wrapped up in skin and breath? Some days I wondered if I was provoking him. Wearing tighter clothes, brushing past him just a little too close. Or maybe he was testing me, feeling how far the lines could stretch before they snapped. Maybe it was both. Maybe neither. It didn't matter. Because every time we touched, something inside me cracked open. I felt powerful and ashamed all at once. Like I was stealing something and giving it away at the same time. One night, I stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, the air still damp against my skin. I didn't think. I didn't cover up. I just walked. He was sitting in the living room. His eyes caught me the moment I crossed the doorway. He looked longer than before, like he was seeing me for the first time and the last. I didn't look away. That moment stretched, silent and heavy, filling the room with something I couldn't name. Later that night, I came home shattered. A date that was supposed to be a fresh start, but instead, it left me crumbling. I cried quietly in the back seat of the car, staring out at the blurry city lights. Every word he said, every glance, felt like a reminder that I was invisible, worthless. When I stepped through the front door, I felt empty, like a shell with no heart inside. Dad was already home. The house smelled faintly of old wood and lavender, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the silence. He looked up when I walked in, eyes tired but somehow warm. No questions. No judgment. Just presence. I collapsed onto the kitchen chair, still clutching my purse like a lifeline. My hands trembled, tears slipping down my cheeks. He moved closer, gentle but steady. Without a word, he pulled a cloth from the drawer, wet it with warm water, and reached out. His hand brushed my cheek, soft as a whisper. He wiped my tears. And then, almost hesitantly, he tucked a stray lock of hair behind my ear. The moment stretched thick with something I couldn't name. Our faces so close it felt like the world had shrunk to just us. I heard the steady beat of my own heart, loud and urgent. And in a whisper I barely recognized as my own, I said, "Daddy, please be gentle. It belongs to you now." The words hung between us. Silence. A long, breathless pause. The kind of silence that breaks a million things all at once. I don't want to tell you what happened next. Because some moments don't need words. They need to be felt in the aching quiet of your own soul. Just one heartbeat. And then I knew. That was the moment I knew we couldn't go back. If you're still watching and you want to see where this all leads, subscribe to Crossing Lines now because this story is far from over. There are truths no one wants to face, but we'll face them together. The morning came like a wave crashing down. I woke up in the same bed, but everything felt different. The air was thick with tension, like the house itself was holding its breath. He was already up before me. I could hear the soft scrape of his shoes against the floor, the click of the front door locking behind him. No goodbye. No kiss on the cheek like before. When we crossed paths, he avoided my eyes, like looking at me might shatter whatever fragile thing was left. And I flinched when he brushed past me, like my skin remembered something my mind was trying to forget. I kept waiting for some kind of spark. Some sign that what we shared was love, or at least something real. But all I felt was a grave. Cold. Heavy. Full of silent screams. I thought it would feel different. More tender. More forgiving. Instead, it felt like a secret we both carried, too dark to speak aloud. He started leaving early every morning, the house eerily quiet before the sun even rose. At night, I'd hear the click of his bedroom door locking, a small but ironclad barrier between us. That small change hit me harder than anything else. He stopped calling me baby girl. Instead, it was always my full name, cold, clipped, distant. A reminder that whatever closeness we once had was slipping away, fading into something unrecognizable. I started skipping meals, pushing food away like it could wash away the guilt that gnawed at me. My reflection grew hollow, eyes dark and empty like the house itself. Every corner whispered the truth I didn't want to face, that we had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The silence between us was louder than any fight. And in that silence, I was left alone with the worst kind of company, my own guilt. If you're feeling this too, the confusion, the pain, the questions, please don't keep it to yourself. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And remember to subscribe to Crossing Lines. We're in this together, uncovering the stories no one dares to tell. I kept asking myself the same questions over and over. Was it abuse? Was it consent? If I offered it, did that make me guilty too? The lines blurred so completely that I couldn't tell where right ended and wrong began, or if they ever really existed at all. Memories flashed through my mind like broken pieces of glass. Birthday cakes with candles flickering softly, bedtime stories whispered in the dark, the way his arms once wrapped me up like I was the whole world. Where did that father go? That man who was warm, protective, who made me feel safe. It was like kissing a photo of someone who no longer existed. Cold, flat, and unreal, like trying to hold onto a shadow. I tried to make sense of it. I sat down one night, pen in hand, to write a letter. To him. To myself. To whatever part of me still believed things could be fixed. But the words wouldn't come. So I burned it. Watched the paper curl and blacken, the flames swallowing the fragments of my tangled heart. Maybe love is just memory plus need, a fragile, desperate kind of math no one talks about. But even now, I don't know what we were, or if what we had was love at all. Have you ever blurred a line that should have never been touched? Was it comfort? Power? Or something darker? Something you can't name? I know I'm not the only one who's crossed that line. If you've lived through something like this, please share it in the comments below. I'll be reading every single one. Sometimes the people who raise us also ruin us. And sometimes we reach for love so blindly, we don't see the edges we're cutting ourselves on. I've since moved out, started to build a life away from that house, away from that silence. We haven't spoken in over a year, but every now and then, his voice slips into my dreams, soft, distant, impossible to place. And I wake up wondering, was it real love? Or just a lonely girl's illusion?